Um, Good afternoon, good morning again. This is our final sneak peek interview before the Capture Conference 2022, which is coming up. We'll be traveling a week from today as we record this. We have with us today Todd Albers, who is, let me get this correct, Senior Payment Consultant at the Federal Reserve Financial Services in Minneapolis. His official title is much longer, but we'll keep it at that. Thanks for joining us today, Todd.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here today.
And so we're gonna talk a little bit about e-invoicing, and we're gonna talk about a business payments coalition. And I'm kind of interested in this because I hate checks. So this is cool for me. So the first question is just very simply, can you briefly explain the e-invoicing initiative and the business payments coalition?
Yeah, certainly. I'll start with the Business Payments Coalition. So the Business Payments Coalition has been around since 2011. Um, prior to around 2016, it was called the Remittance Coalition. And really the focus of the Business Payments Coalition is to bring stakeholders together that are interested in improving payment efficiency around electronic payments. What the focus is to look at what are the barriers for broad adoption, and part of those barriers include paper or manual invoicing, as well as on the other side of the payment, um, manual processing of remittance information. And so the Business Payments Coalition, what it's been doing is working through these industry stakeholders, which are all volunteers, mind you, that come together, and it cuts across all segments of the payment industry, which includes the B2B networks, the AP, AR software providers, corporates, standards bodies, where we come together and we work through and collaborate on what are some approaches that can be adopted by the market that can help businesses overcome the challenges with any sort of automation. And I think what the Invoice Initiative is doing is looking at what are those broad challenges for interoperability between different business systems, and how can you solve probably the most vexing problems most businesses face in automation, and that is, how do I discover another business to send an electronic document to, and how do I deliver that electronic document in a secure manner, so that I can bring that into a system and process that for payment, for example. So that's what the from a real high level, the e-invoice initiative is focused on, is solving this discovery, delivery, and data requirements that all of these businesses have when they're trying to automate their back office.
Okay. No, I think you alluded to this a little bit in your first answer, but why hasn't the U.S. embraced electronic payments? If I'm not mistaken, I think Europe, you get charged to cash a check as opposed to the U.S., so you get charged for electronic payment. Because I know personally, I'm sick of checks. So
yeah. Great question, and I get asked this question all the time. I work with a lot of folks from Europe, and they always scratch their head. It's like, well, why hasn't the U.S. embraced electronic payments like we have, and or what is a check? That's probably the more common one. So, but on the B2B side, what we found is that there's a couple of barriers. Again, is exchanging that electronic payment information. There's a lot of hesitancy to share that information, even though it's on the bottom of your check. You've got your routing number and your account number, your bank routing number and your account number. It's on the bottom of a check. So that's typically what you need to initiate payment. The other one is just how payments are made with either either a credit push or a debit pull. And in the U.S., credit push is the primary one, and I need to know my partner's bank account to send that payment. So there's just this hesitancy to share that information. There's hesitancy to store that information as well, because of people are fearful of being hacked, and that payment data, payment information is going to be stolen and misused in some form or fashion. And so those are some of the primary reasons why we see still high check usage. And the other thing too is, for small businesses, checks still work, and they have the information that they need on a check to process that payment. In the electronification of that check, or that payment, I should say, isn't on a high priority list for them at this point in time. Now, checks, the usage of checks, and I think COVID and the pandemic in general really made businesses to start thinking about their back office, because as everybody started working remotely, it became increasingly harder for businesses to start printing checks. And I kept hearing stories of businesses, doing these check runs where somebody, the AP clerk was going into the office, or they were bringing the check printer home and running check runs from home, and dropping those off into the post office, for example, when they did the check run. I mean, all of those introduced, those are workaround solutions, but I think they highlighted the fact that, businesses need to start embracing electronic payments. And I think, quite frankly, that the market is, I know the banking industry, the payments industry is very focused on trying to convert off of check payments into more electronic payments. And you've got, the new instant payment systems that are being set up with the clearinghouse and the real-time payments network that's been established, in the Fed with their Fed Now platform that's being implemented and will be rolled out in 2023 timeframe. I mean, those are all targeted to try to help remove or reduce the usage of checks in the B2B space. On the consumer side, we're seeing there's quite a bit of a drop in check usage, because of, consumers are becoming more accustomed to or comfortable with the technologies that have been developed around, person-to-person payments, or paying online bill payment solutions and whatnot. So it's going to take some time, but I think we're seeing a drop in check usage. Actually, we have been seeing a drop in check usage, I should say.
It's funny you mentioned that people are concerned about storing this information electronically, and then you're talking about people doing check runs and having the check printer in their vehicle, and huge potential exposure there.
Yeah, absolutely. It really introduced the opportunity for, and what we see with checks is that, there's more payment fraud, and there's a lot of reasons why, the Federal Reserve is interested in moving, helping move the market move more to electronic payments and embracing electronic payments. So, and that's, just one of those reasons.
Here's hoping. So I'm curious, and I'm not 100% sure if this is the right question to ask you, but it seems to me there's a drag on the economy, because there's just a whole lot of time spent on trying to process an invoice, paper invoice, by just process it and pay it. It just seems that energy could be spent a little bit more productively somewhere else. Is that kind of an outlandish statement, or sort of that make a little bit of sense?
No, it makes complete sense. And so the Business Payments Coalition published a paper in 2016. So it's a few years old now, but it was focused on what are the challenges and opportunities of electronic invoicing in the United States, and how to look at it from if widespread adoption occurred. And what we estimated that you could save U.S. businesses anywhere from 180 to 210 billion dollars in processing cost savings annually, if you were able to convert all invoices from paper to electronic. So right now, roughly 75% of invoices that are exchanged between businesses require some sort of manual processing. It might not always be just paper. It may be where I email and send it through email as a PDF attachment, and I have to open that up, and I have to do something with that PDF. that is one part of it. It automates the sending side of it, but not necessarily automates the receiving side of it and bringing that into a system. For example, another one is where I require somebody to log into a portal and upload an invoice so that I can download that into my system. All of those, variations, there's manual steps that are involved. But if you did a true electronic system-to-system data exchange, you can cut anywhere from $4 to $8 per invoice out of the cost for processing. So there's a huge upside from just general business payment efficiency. And to back to your question about drag on the economy, cut out a significant cost in the back office for most businesses. And the question I always get asked is, well, if you're going to cut out these costs, are you cutting out the people? And I don't think it's necessarily cutting out the people. It's really, instead of hand keying invoices into an AP system or uploading them into a portal or whatever, or downloading them from a portal, whatever that is, you're just going to turn them into doing more value-added services or value-added activities, I should say, within the back office, and that provides more value for the business, so they can start understanding, what is their working capital position, how can they take a better advantage of discounts, can I develop new payment strategies? All of those items are benefits to the business instead of hand keying data into a system.
Right. I guess the flip side of that, and relevant for the capture industry, is processing invoices. I almost seems like every year a couple of new invoice processing products come out. It's been bread and butter for capture vendors for decades. So will an effort like this, sort of, help business in general, but could removing invoice processing as a steady source of income harm the capture industry?
I don't think so. I think it actually can enhance their service offering, quite frankly. I think it becomes another product that they can support in the market that will help their businesses, their goals of electronifying their back end processes. Because, let's be honest, if we start something tomorrow, it's not going to convert over by Friday. It's there's going to be there's an adoption curve here that will take some time, and I think the capture industry would, knowing now where the market might be trending towards, they can then adjust their plans and get involved with this concept of what we call the exchange framework right now within the E-Invoice Initiative that the BPC is working on.
Now, the final question I had for you is, I was reading the site, pulling these questions together, and I just kept thinking to myself, this just makes so much sense. And you spoke about this a little bit, but why don't we have this wonderful thing yet? And what's the holdup? And I know that there's some registry work that you mentioned, and that's going live in 2023. Or is that getting us closer to electronic payments?
Well, I think that's a great question. I think what we're doing through the Business Payments Coalition, with the technologies that essentially standards that are being leveraged for what I mentioned earlier about this discovery, delivery, and data that make up the exchange framework. Those standards have been around for a significant amount of time. The data standards have been around since the late 90s. The discovery and delivery standards have been around since the early 2010s, I guess, if that's the right way to refer to that. Right. And they're being used currently in Europe through a couple different platforms. One being one called OpenPeppol, which maybe the scanning industry might be familiar with, where and that was a government initiative, quite frankly, where the government was driving the adoption of these exchange standards for sending business to government invoices, as well as other procurement documents within the government space. So the Business Payments Coalition looked at those standards and said, you know what, this would be a really good approach for the U.S. market. And so to answer the question, why hasn't this come to the U.S.? It's just that we're a little bit late adopting these sets of standards. And the other thing is that there was no entity in the market driving it. And the Business Payments Coalition stepped in and identified this from a payment efficiency and realized that this was a really good approach for extending and helping automate electronic invoices, but also to help automate electronic remittance exchange, which is another set of problems that is highly fragmented and has very low adoption from an automation standpoint.
Okay. I'd love to continue this conversation, but I think we're running out of time, and we only want to give a sneak peek away. So, Todd, thank you very much for your time. I look forward to hearing your session next week.
Great, looking forward to it. We'll see everybody next Thursday.